Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first educational activity for the BEMA also education platform on Made All. You all hear me, yeah? Um, this session will be directed mainly about TNO ST3 application. Uh, we're getting you, we're getting you recent successful applicants who will guide you through the application process, timeline, paperwork, their own experience, tips and tricks, and how to secure a training number through a successful application. We will start with Mr. Kamal. He's a TNO consultant and one of the best people who done this application and will be guiding you through it um, to know the timeline, to know the paperwork you need for a successful application. Then Ratib and Islam will take us through their tips and tricks, points to be careful about while you're doing your application, and how to reach a successful application. So I will hand over to Mr. Kamal to start with his presentation. Mr. Kamal, please. You muted Tamer. Yeah, unmute yourself from. No, unmute yourself first. No, you're still muted. So just a minute. I think Mr. Kamal will be rejoining. Sorry for this technical issue. Okay, so I think Mr. Kamal is just struggling to join. Oh, he's in. Good. Yeah, you muted. You muted Tamer. Okay, so Ratib, are you ready to start your presentation until Tamer sorted?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah.
Thanks.
Should we do that? Okay. Let's just. Has that shared? Not yet.
Just use sharing the entire screen, not a window.
screen.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's working. So my name's Ratib. I'm one of the ST4s in the South East London Deanery. And thank you for having me here. I was just asked to speak a little bit about how I prepared for the ST3 interviews. And so I was going to go through a little bit about some of the things that get asked about, some of the ways that I prepared for them and how I addressed some of those stations. So some of this might be covered a bit later, but I was just going to go through what we know about the 2025 interviews. So first of all, they'll be online, as they have been. There'll be 4 stations, 10 minutes each, and the communication station, which was reintroduced last year, is again going to feature in the interviews this year. And one thing that I found quite helpful was familiarizing myself with the scoring matrix, which is lower down within the handbook that you can find online. The reason for that is because it actually tells you what the interviewers are marking you on for each station. So, for example, if you look at the communication station, you can see that they are actually scoring you at least 1/5 of the marks on technical knowledge, so they can put in some clinical questions. And as a bit of a motivational boost, if you don't have a wonderful self-assessment score, it's only a small proportion of the marks overall. And it's quite helpful to just tailor your answers for those relevant parts that they're looking for. So the timeline, a sort of general overview of how I prepared, I probably spent about 3 months or so doing this. To begin with, I was just working on my knowledge base, and so I used things like books, courses, and online resources. And then towards the 2 months before mark, I was still doing that, but started some group work and joined a few question banks. And then in the final month, I would say the most important thing for me was just lots of intensity of group practice and having some mock interviews by consultants and registrars. And another thing to mention is just make sure that you arrange some time off around the time of the interviews, because it can get a bit tight for leave. And so starting on the first of the stations is the commitment to specialty station, which used to be called the portfolio station. This is really your opportunity to show off and to talk through your portfolio and CV. It almost always, I haven't heard of a scenario where it doesn't start with an open question. What question that is can vary though. So it could be something like, why orthopedics? It could be, why should we choose you? Take us through your CV, something like that. And essentially that's then your opportunity to try and score full marks on this particular station with an opening answer that can be, I would say, no more than 3 to 4 minutes, because they will ask follow-up questions. And you can see from that part of the scoring matrix the particular areas that they're looking for. And it's kind of the things you would expect. So it's things about your career, how you've developed, team work and leadership roles, academic work, organization and planning, and so on. The follow-up questions are your traditional ones. So it might be about strengths or weaknesses. It could be sometimes they word it more towards tell us about a time that you made a mistake or a time that you received negative feedback. And personally, the way that I would address those particular kinds of questions is obviously to come up with an example. Choose an example that didn't cause any clinical harm. Even if it's not a real example, have an example ready. And then you need to talk about how you recognized it, addressed it, and then made a change to prevent that from happening again. Another question that sometimes could get asked is what you would do if you don't get into ST3. And it's an opportunity to show your commitment by talking about how you would address your areas of development and then reapply and try again. But they could ask more topical questions. So they could ask about the T&O curriculum. They could ask about the Kennedy report, which is a report that looked at diversity in surgery. Or they could ask about something like GIRFT or potentially major studies, for example, tip-apex distance, compartment syndrome, and so on. So the way that I prepared for this particular station was I prepared a template for that first question. So using the CAMP structure, which is clinical, academic, management, and personal, I had a set of things that I wanted to say, and I would just change the way that I'd start off my answer in response to whatever question they were asking. And the things that I included were clinical background, my research and audit involvement, any teaching, any leadership or management positions, and extracurricular activities. And the extracurricular activities are actually important. So I would make sure that you do say something, because I do know people who've had feedback from the interviews where they marked them down saying that they didn't have enough or evidence of an interest outside of medicine. Another thing that I found useful was ChatGPT. That was actually quite helpful, because when you're looking at some of these topical reports, they're 200 pages, really long reports. And what you can do is you can ask it to summarize it in a paragraph. And so that way you can just go through some of them and get the gist of what they're about, just so you're more familiar. It can also give you ideas of certain ways to structure answers, if there was a question that you completely can't think of a way that you would respond to. But I think the most important way is practice. So I would form revision groups with other people, multiple if you can, because people respond to things differently, and it's good to have a variety, and just keep practicing and give honest feedback to each other. Then moving on to the second station, the clinical station. It's a 10-minute station that tends to be divided into two halves, and they tend to have a series of questions that they ask for each of these scenarios. So it could be two separate clinical cases. And they do often give you resources on screen that you need to look at, whether that's something like imaging, a cross-sectional diagram to label, or something like that. And from the scoring matrix, you can see again that only 1/5 of the marks are actually for the technical knowledge. The remainder of it is all about things like awareness and problem solving, as well as how you communicate. And the variety of topics, it can be quite wide. It's things that you would expect, really. So anatomy-wise, they could provide you with a diagram of a brachial plexus or a cross-sectional image of a wrist or the lower limb and ask you to label some of the structures. So I'd try and make yourself familiar with that. They could talk about orthopedic emergencies, compartment syndrome, so on. They could also talk about any of the common orthopedic presentations, so dislocations, tibial plateaus, so on. I would always remember to mention ATLS. So, for example, if it's a high energy mechanism of injury, the way you can start your answer is saying something like, I would approach this patient using ATLS principles as part of a trauma team. And then they may say, no, it's an isolated injury, carry on. Or they might say, okay, tell me how you would do that. And then you can talk about ATLS itself. And also they can ask about approaches, and it's usually the common ones. So things like carpal tunnel or the approach to the wrist and so on. The way I prepared for this, so I used online question banks, and the way I used them were, yes, their questions were helpful, but I used them as a curriculum to follow. So I'd go through a topic, find that topic, read about it somewhere else, do the questions, tick it off, and just use it as a way to structure my learning. And then practicing with other people, I did use some books and Google for the anatomy side of things, and I downloaded cross-sectional images to try and practice labeling them. And also it's worth revising the courses of the main nerves and the common anatomic spaces like the cubital tunnel or carpal tunnel, because they can ask about that. And then also guidelines. I would read all of the BOST guidelines and be familiar with those, because then when you're answering about how you can manage something, you can say, in accordance with this BOST guideline, I would do this, and it just looks slicker. Then the prioritization station, that tends to be done in one of two ways. Either you're ordering cases for a trauma list, or you're prioritizing patients to see on your on-call. In both of these situations, if you notice, actually there are some marks for communication and gathering the information. So you do have to ask questions. Within the trauma list setup, it's more about asking things about your general setup. So is it a major trauma center? Is it a district general? Do you have other lists available to you? Do you have X-ray? What's the consultant's subspecialty? So on. But then you also have to ask about each of the individual patients to work out a little bit more about them, because they might not tell you that it's an open injury, but it is. You ask these sorts of questions to help you prioritize. And it's important to recognize as well, some cases will probably need to be cancelled. They tend to give you more than you can physically fit on the list as well. If it is an on-call situation, ask if you have an SHO and if you do use them. And again, you're asking questions about the patients. I put in just an example of a prioritization station just to kind of show how I tend to approach it. But obviously there are many ways of doing this, and it's not necessarily the best way for everybody. So in this particular example, you're an ST3, you're in a DGH, and you have a half-day trauma theatre the following day. And you've got these 5 cases to go through. So the way I would probably have addressed it would be asking some general questions about the hospital. So do we have any other available lists, CPOD or elective? What's the consultant's subspecialty? Do we have X-ray present? And I would do that at the beginning, and then I tend to read through each of the lines after that. So I would read out the 51-year-old male with the ankle fracture, and I'd ask them, when was the injury? Is it closed and neurovascularly intact? What's their swelling like? And I'd go through each of these different cases like that. For example, within the second one, you're recognizing it's a 65-year-old with back pain, red flags, awaiting an MRI. At that point, I would then say, this is a potential cauda equina, which would be an orthopedic emergency. Do we have neurosurgical capability? In this case, they would then say no. So you would say, in that case, this may need discussion with the regional neurosurgical center and then transfer. And you can already think to yourself, okay, this patient we can't manage here. They're not going to be on my list. And you go through like that. And then once I've read through all of them and said things like that, I would then present my order. So my particular thinking for this one was that I would put the 5-year-old child first because I'm concerned about the neurological symptoms, and followed by the 35-year-old female with the neck of femur. And I would say that the 90-year-old neck of femur, I would mention that I'm aware of the best practice tariff that suggests they should be operated on within 36 hours, but they need medical optimization, and therefore I would postpone them whilst awaiting orthogeriatric input. And it's always good to have a standby patient as well. So in this case, I've kept the ankle on standby. So just in case something happened to one of the other two, you have a case to fill the gap. Obviously, this is one way of doing it, but there are many different ways you could order the list. It's more about the thinking that counts. So how I prepared for this particular station was, me and my friends, we just made up lists of patients and scenarios and just keep practicing. And it's more about your decision making and how you can back up your decision making. That's the key point. My tips with this would be realistic with the timings. If it's a half-day list, you're not going to get 3 or 4 cases done unless they're very small. I personally talk through as I'm going along, and the reason I did this was I thought to myself, if I run out of time before the end, at least I'm scoring marks for the things that I'm saying as I go, and do use whatever's available to you, whether it's other teams, other lists, and so on and so forth. Then the 4th station, the communication station. As a disclaimer, the communication station wasn't there in my year, so I haven't had first-hand experience of this, but they did reintroduce it last year. And it's essentially simulating communication, whether that's with an actor or with a consultant who's pretending to be an actor. They can do it in different ways. But cases that they could go through would be, for example, consenting or discussing a diagnosis or complication, or dealing with an angry patient or relative. From talking to some of my ST3 colleagues, there were follow-up questions. So it's key not to spend the entire 10 minutes, for example, just doing the consenting, because they may follow this up with a development of the scenario, and you may have to then discuss something else. And they do ask clinical questions in this as well. For example, an approach could come up. And as you see, 1/5 of the marks are for technical knowledge. So my suggestion for this would be, again, just purely practice within a group. I just made a brief summary slide of some of the resources that I used. So use your consultants, use your registrars and your peers. I used a particular book for anatomy, but obviously any would be useful. And the online question banks that I used were these two. They are paid question banks. So perhaps if you're part of a group, maybe one person could sign up to one, another person could sign up to another. So then you've got a variety. And any online webinar series that are available, like this series, or for example, the fundamentals in orthopedics, and ChatGPT and Google as well, to help summarize things and help with extra resources. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you.
Thanks very much. It's really helpful, really informative. Yeah, and good in your experience, which is really, really good. And we're waiting to all the questions. So if you don't mind, just to hang with us until we get all the questions and be back to you. Won't be long. So Islam will go through his history, so his experience in the application, his tips and tricks as well, and then we'll receive all the questions at the end. Islam, are you ready?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Up to you.
Yeah. So first and foremost, thank you so much for having me today for this session. So my journey to ST3, Trauma Orthopedics, Steps for Success. My name is Islam Sharif. This is my professional background. I graduated in Egypt, so I'm international. I'm IMG, I'm not UK graduate. I came to UK 2020. I had the pleasure to work with Mr. Hashim in QE. We worked together 2020 to 2021. I worked with him as SHO. So I did almost a year and a half as SHO in TNO and surgical rotation, and then completed my MRCS and upgraded to TNO registrar job in the same trust. And then I went for a quality improvement fellowship in the same trust as well. During those 4 years, I applied for ST3 orthopedics 4 times, and eventually I get it last year. And I started my rotation as ST3 this August in Warwickshire Orthopedic Specialist Training Program. As Michael Jordan said, I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games, 26 times. I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed it. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. So this graph looks complicated, but I would just like mention that. So if you have a look at the orange, this is my score over the 4 years. So I started to apply since 2021. So my score was 112 in the first application, and I was inappointable. Second time, I scored around 133, and my rank was around 220. So the green shows my rank. So my rank improving from 220 to 150 last year, and my score is getting improvement from 112 to 178 last year. My self-assessment score as well getting improvement. So I started my first year with 17, and last year was 23. So this is a timeline for the application. So yeah, you can find this easily. The link is there. You have to know the resource, and you have to go through it yourself and know it inside out. Application opens in November, close in December, self-assessment around January time. And then you will have around a week or so to appeal your application, and then interview. This year will be first week of April, and offers usually released by the last week of April. So if we go through the self-assessment, how to score very well as an IMG, particularly because I'm IMG, and like as IMG, sometimes we struggle to score as much as like UK graduates score. So for the first question, this is your N number, and you have to pay attention that this N number is not contributing to your total score. It is the number that everything you've done as research or publication or presentation or audits will be divided by. So this number, as go higher, it will affect. So you have, if you're number 1 and you've done 2 audits, you will get two points. If you're number 2, so you have to do 4 audits to compensate. And if it is 3, you have to do 6 audits. And if it is 4, you have to do 8 audits. So it's very important number, and you have to know how to calculate this number. So for Egyptian guys like me, because we are doing 1 year as internship, so they are giving us another year after internship year, and it counts as FY2. So you start counting this number after 1 year after graduation, not straight away after your graduation or finishing your internship. So I graduated 2016. I completed my internship 2016. So I started to count towards my N number in 2017, May 2017. So yeah, everyone has to like calculate this himself and make sure he's got like an accurate N number. Also, what's not counting towards N number is any career gaps. Like if you had any gaps to prepare for an exam, you didn't work through this period, or you did a degree like PhD or anything, you were doing anything else apart from medicine. So this is not counting towards your N number. Question number 2. From question number 2, you start to score for your application. So question number 2 is your orthopedic experience, and the golden timeline is 10 months to 42 months. And you have to know that any orthopedics that you have done during your foundation year is not counting through this. So for people who did in a first year orthopedic in Egypt after internship, I'm telling them that the first year is not counting. So this will help you a lot to save like 12 months or so. So if you're planning to apply this year and next year as a backup, you have to work your way around and make sure if you're going to go beyond 42 months, you have to get a plan B for the next year. This is what I've done last year by giving up my orthopedic registrar job and went for quality improvement fellow to save my 8 points and not to lose 4 points, because I was about to go beyond 42 months. So this is a good tip for this question. For question 3 is other specialties. So if you work in other specialties related to surgery like ITU, urology, maxillofacial, plastic surgery, general surgery, or anything, you will get 2 points. If you work in only one specialty, you will get 1. If you work in 2 of them, you'll get 2 points. But you have to make sure you spend at least 4 months in each specialty. And for this, you can just like get HR letter or a signed letter from a consultant or so. But make sure for any evidence you provide, you'll get like a reference, and this reference might be name with telephone number or name with an email address. Apart from the next question, which I'm going to tell you about how to do it. So the next one is number for neck femur fracture, either like fixed or replaced like hemiarthroplasty. You will score 2 if you do 5 to 11 0 if less than 5, and 12 or more you will score 4 points. And I find this one is very easy one to score 4 points. It's just like, this is the easiest 4 points you will get from this application. So you have to complete those numbers, either STS or STU, and get them signed. But the tip for this question is, once you get your evidence, it needs to be validated and signed by one of the consultants, and you need to add the GMC registration number for each page, because I know some of my colleagues last year, they provided their lookbook signed by consultant, but without GMC registration, and it's been refused. They didn't get like easy 4 points, and some of them lost the chance to have an interview for that. So from question 5, question 5, question 6, 7, and 8 are related to research, publications, audits, and presentations. And from question 5, those kind of things, you need to be aware that any points you score here will be divided by the N number in the question 1. So question 5 and question 6 related to research, and I find most of people struggling to get research, and they just like give up applying for training because they think that, we haven't done so much research, so we are not going to apply. It's going to be very hard, and so I'm telling you, I applied for this application 4 times. I got it last time, and I've got only 1 publication. So I don't have so much publications in my portfolio, and I played the game very well. So in my interview, when they asked me about my weakness point, I just like mentioned research is my weakness point, and I have a plan to improve it by doing so and so and so. So it's not necessarily to have like so many publications to apply for the training job and get the job eventually. But question 5 is for first author publications. For each paper, you will get 2 points. And question 6 is for like any co-author publications. For each one, you will get 1 point, but the maximum you can get from research is 8 points. And again, remember that those numbers will get divided by your N number, the first question. So question 7 is for your audits, and again, yeah, question 8 is for your publication, and question 9 is for your master degree or PhD. So yeah, I know most of Egyptian guys completed their master degree, so you will get like a secure like 1 point, and it's not going to be divided by anything. So teaching, so you will get teaching and leadership. Again, teaching and leadership points are not being divided. So those are extra points that you can achieve very easily, and it's not being affected by your N number. So if you have a look at the self-assessment, you'll get like teaching is not being affected by N number. Leadership is not being affected. Also your DHS numbers, other specialities, and saving time in your orthopedic experience. So if you played the game very well, just try to be within the 42 months in orthopedics, so you will score 8, and then you've got your DHS numbers, which is 12 DHSs or DHSs and nails or even hemiarthroplasty, it counts. So again, those are 12 points in hand. You can easily get like 2 points in teaching by completing a PG certificate, or at least 1 point if you are regularly engaged in your regional or local teaching programs in your hospital or whatever. Also leadership, you can secure like easily 1 point if you're doing like any local leadership, like organizing a course, organizing a teaching for your junior doctors, managing your rota, or doing this kind of stuff. Or if you go like any international teaching, you'll get like 2 points. So my advice here in the self-assessment is try to save your orthopedic experience. Try to find another job if you are planning in the next 1 or 2 or 3 years to apply for the training, and you are really willing to get the job. So try to plan ahead, find another jobs like teaching fellow job, quality improvement fellow job, or research fellow jobs. It will help you to get the other points of teaching, leadership, publications, presentations, and audits, and will save you points for your orthopedic experience as well. So this is how to play the game of application. So yeah, for the interview format, my colleague just like gone through all of the things in terms of portfolio, prioritization, clinical, and communication skills. I would just add that I have done the interview last year. Communication skills was just like it wasn't really a scenario. It was just like direct question to, so you are orthopedic registrar, you've got like, so my question was, you are orthopedic registrar, you've got a patient with shoulder dislocation, so yeah, tell me, yeah, what so you are going to consent a patient for closed reduction, plus or minus open reduction, so how would you do it? So you will just like go through the process. I will introduce myself, I will explain the injury to the patient, and then I will explain the procedures, the alternatives, the risks, and they ask you, yeah, what are the risks? Are you going to explain to the patient? And then, I will ask the patient to sign the consent form, and I will inform my consultants. So, yeah, it's all about like your peripheral awareness, use the resources, technical knowledge as well, and everything. And then they took me like through the procedure itself. How would you reduce the shoulder? And then, and then they took me for the approach. They asked me about the approach. Yeah, it's not being reduced. So what would you do? So yeah, I think they wanted to hear that I'm going to inform my consultants that it's not being reduced before proceeding with open reduction process. And then, so your consultant is here. What would you do? What's your approach? And then just like, it ended. I scored fairly well with my communication skill station, so 38 out of 50, which is reasonable. average to get a job. So key eligibility criteria, you guys have to know that you need to have a medical degree, GMC registration. You need to complete your MRCS by the offer date. So to apply, you need to get to have at least MRCS Part A cleared, and planning to do MRCS Part B by February. You need minimum 10 months experience in trauma orthopedic theoretically to get like the A points, and evidence of foundation competencies. For evidence of foundation competencies, you've got two pathways. Either people who gone through the training CT1 and CT2, which is official training in the country, so they got their certificate. And other ways that I've done is a CREHIS form. So CREHIS form is a certificate of readiness to enter higher surgical training. So what would you do with this form is you have to print it out, go through all the aspects of the form, try to speak to your consultants, speak to your senior colleagues to get you signed off. But eventually it needs to be signed by one of the consultants, and he has to put his initials against each point, and then just like fill his details in the last paper and get stamped by your local hospital stamp. So you need to do that to be long listed even before submitting your self-assessment. So key changes in my application is, so I improved my self-assessment throughout the 4 years, started by 17 and went up to 23 with only one publication, again, because the excuse for people is we don't have enough publications to apply. But it's not all about publications. It's about like getting a diverse portfolio. So try to go through each point and try to get the most out of it. So I enhanced my interview skills. Yeah, I remember my first time I did the interview, I scored 112 and I was inappointable. And last time I scored fairly well and I got the job. So I worked on that by just like practice. You have to use your consultants, use your clinical, your senior clinical colleagues, and just like, yeah, get the most out of that. Portfolio optimization, as I mentioned to you guys, you have to go through each point and see what you can get in order to get the most point out of it. So focus practice on weak areas and see how can you develop it. So key takeaways: persistence pays off. Apply again and again and again, and the plan, you will get it at the end. Self-reflection is really very, very crucial. You have to reflect on everything you're doing in your day-to-day practice. Preparation is the key, and my colleague has gone through all the process of how to prepare for the interview. Seek mentorship, ask your senior colleagues, speak to your consultants, and yeah, keep your goal in front of your eyes. Stay very organized. As Billy said, success is no accident. So it has work, preservation, learning, studying, sacrifice, and most of all, love of what you are doing or learning to do. Thank you, and I'm ready for any questions.
Thank you so much, Islam. As always, a star. So very nice. Yeah, very nice digging into the application tips and tricks and the whole points of your successful journey at the end.
Thank
Good.
you.
So, Tamer, are you ready to present?
Yes, guys, can you see my screen?
Not yet. So share the whole screen, not the entire screen, not a window.
How about now?
Not yet.
Share my screen.
No.
Anything?
No.
Yes or no?
No. So it's very simple. Just share entire screen.
I am doing share entire screen.
Yeah, let me try to help you. Not sure it's giving me the option. No. You're muted.
Okay,
Yeah, we hear you now.
can you see the screen now?
Yeah, so basically, we'll take some questions, send it to me, and I will share it from my side.
Okay. Well, do I send it to you now, and then we can share it from your side, and I can talk over it. Okay.
I will do that.
Okay.
Good. So to go through some question, I think first question is to Ratib. So Ratib, if you can come in.
Yep.
So Mohammed is asking you how much common score in the self-assessment that might secure an interview.
To secure the interview, I don't think they have a minimum cutoff from what I understand. They may have a certain number of people that they offer interviews to dependent on capacity, but I think that minimum score does vary from year to year. I'm trying to think back to other people's scores that I'm aware of. I don't think they have a set minimum cutoff though. I think it's more dependent on number of people.
Okay. And he asking, is orthopedics really a competitive or is doable to get a number?
I mean, it is competitive, but I think it is doable. I think if you're prepared, and I find the interview process is almost like a game that you have to play the right way to get the points, but it can be done.
So the competition ratio last year was 3.1 to 1. So every 3 applicants were competing for 1 job. Okay, this went down a lot than before.
And Muhammad Ihsan is asking you. So either you and Islam, so both of you can both input on this. Being a clinical teaching fellow in orthopedics does add to the orthopedic experience.
I can answer this question. So yeah, clinical fellowship, clinical teaching fellow, you will get the contract. It will specify how much orthopedic are you doing. So in the application form, you will split it between teaching fellow and clinical fellow. So if you spend 40% of your time doing orthopedics, this will count as 40% orthopedic towards your orthopedic experience, and 60% won't count, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I can open the application and show them how to do it. You want me to do it?
Yeah.
It's in my talk anyway. So.
Okay, that's fine. So anyway, your talk will be on in a minute. Ahmed is asking another question about how many points for an author in a meeting.
Just 1.
Holly is asking, why do you think they have introduced 2 extra points for an organized portfolio? And how can we ensure we achieve that?
So I feel like they might be adding it in as a differentiator, because perhaps they're getting too many people scoring a similar score. Because I know within the marks, actually 1 mark difference can be a difference of like 50 places in terms of ranking.
Cool. Yeah.
So it's not just a differentiator. Yes, last year they had more than 380 applicants. And what they want to do, they want to streamline how the process is going. And if you look at the requirement process, organization, management, is scored as part of the interview process. So this question 12, the last part, is part of how you're showing your organization, planning, and part of also for your communication part. So you can gain an 82 points by making it very easy for the guy who's scoring your portfolio to get everything easy in 2 minutes, rather than he's looking around, and wasting time. You don't have enough people to go through all of this. And they struggled last year, with the scoring system. And as soon as they have problem with any portfolio organization, you're undermarked.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will go through the answer for the second part of the question. How can we ensure we achieve this? So because I've done this last year, so you have to make sure that each question of the self-assessment, I've got like a separate PDF titled with the name of the question. So like, for example, post-foundation experience, in a separate PDF titled post-foundation experience, and you have to get like your HR letters or your first paper of your contracts, just like chronologically easily, and just like highlight with just like yellow or any different color the dates you started and you finished the job. Again, you do it for everything like that. Like for your logbook, you highlight your hip fracture fixation or arthroplasty. So you make it easy for them, and they will give you the 2 points.
Good. So we stop the question. I'll share the presentation for Tamer to go through. So you can see it now, yeah?
Hi guys, sorry for all the communication problems I had today. I'm all the way down under Australia. So I'm Tamer Kamal, one of the orthopedic consultants.
Then I just close my camera for you to take your time.
Okay. Okay. If you move to the first slide, Mohammed, this is part of the BEMA also training program. If you move to the first slide, this is a very important slide, and this is the preparation timeline. So it's just open now in December. This year they said there's not going to be any extension. Usually when you're closing time for the application, okay, the system crashes in the last 2 days. Make sure you get on time. So if you press the first button again for me, next button. Okay, so your first deadline date you need to remember is the 5th of December. This is by 4 o'clock, your application should be there. Okay, the next phase we go for self-assessment evidence, and you need to apply all your stuff by the 12th of January. Okay, anything missing is a problem. Between that time, even if you didn't get your score, start practicing, and again, practicing and practicing until you know that you're shortlisted or you didn't get lucky. Okay, you get a remote interview on the 1st to 4th of April, and by the 15th of the 4th, 2025, you should have your initial offers. That date is very important too, and so the phases. If you look at the job availability, there's 3 jobs that are currently on. All of them will close on the same day, which is okay for the initial. The majority of numbers are definitely for England and Scotland. That's followed by Wales and followed by Ireland. However, I would encourage everyone to apply for all 3 applications. The application for Wales and Ireland might be slightly different. So just make sure you give it enough time. So apply for the England and Scotland application. And as soon as you finish, start the Wales application and Northern Ireland. If you move to the next step, Mohammed. So my colleague mentioned essential criteria. The essential criteria and desirable criteria. You have to have an MBBS. We know that. You have to be registered with GMC. You have to have core training competency and right to work in UK, which means you are currently employed. So you can't come from overseas and just get the job immediately. You should have fitness to practice. Your language skills is part of the essential criteria, but this is anyone who's practicing in the UK or had his IELTS, if you come from overseas, with continuous employment, should have no problem. You need to complete the application. If you don't complete it in time, you're not competing for that job. So if you look at the selection criteria, this is a bit different. On the qualification, you need at least a minimum of 10 months experience. You need to achieve core competency. And to get maximum score, you need at least 8 months experience in related specialities. There was a debate about the courses, and up till early December, the deaneries were, because lots of people could not update advanced trauma life support. Now they added back again the ATLS, but you have to have it by interview time. Okay, so remember, if your ATLS is not valid, you will need to have passed your ATLS or renewed it by the interview time, which is the 1st of April. Okay. Regarding the clinical skills, you have a validated logbook, and Islam mentioned some very important bits about it. Okay. And in order to get extra scores in the interview, they recommended to have a practical course in casting techniques. Okay. If you look at in academic skills, personal skills, and probity, we talked about research audit and quality improvement projects. One of the other things that lots of people miss is the IT skills. If you've got anything that shows you've got any IT skills in the portfolio, that's very important. And you need to bring it in because this is part of desirable criteria. Okay. If you did any lab research, that's also desirable criteria. Now, if you look at the personal skills in here, these are all essential. We talk about communication, problem solving, organization and planning, and that answers the question about how you're submitting your paperwork. Okay. Getting everything on time. This is why they got all these dates. Value of the NHS. In all of these be highlighted in the reference sections. So make sure when you're referees, you're able to highlight these strong points about you. There's two in your applications, there's two probity issues that I'll highlight. Okay. And you need to show that your ability to attend to the need. This is mainly in your reference and your communication skills. Okay. So this is mainly some of the last bit essential criteria that we see here. Okay, that you have insight in orthopedic surgery. This will come in reference, how you show your courses that you want. It's recommended that you had other orthopedic courses. Okay, in your level, if you had courses like the AO Basic, for instance, or how to apply external fixator, casting courses, very important, as mentioned before, as well as having a course about neck and femur management, wrist fractures, or ankle fractures. All of this is very important. Okay, you have to put this in the portfolio, and your referee can help you by saying that you're attending all of these. They have insight into your training, and you planned training in which you got your courses, you're planning what you're going to do, you attended this, and you plan to attend other features. So this is the application process. It's very easy. It's full format. The first section is personal information. The second section equals diversity, then employment history. And if you go, I'll highlight the important bits in every part that could be tricky. Next slide, please. So the right to work in the UK. So this is a very important question here. If you're not national from the United Kingdom, you have to say where you work. Okay, and if you are your spouse or you got a different type of visa, you have to put it in. It does not affect you being appointable anymore. It used to be before, but if you're appointable, and it just means for statistic purposes, you will still get. They will still issue a visa for the duration of your training program. Okay, if you look at the second part. Okay, the full employment history. This is the most important thing. Okay, so it includes every employment gap, foundation years, since you left med school. The referees have to be 3 referees from the last 2 years. Current employer is a must. Make sure you check the email for the referee and discuss with him. He's happy to be a supportive referee, not any referee. A supported referee will take lens in highlighting the stuff that we highlighted earlier to put in your reference. There's a reference that is just neutral and a reference that is supportive. Okay, make sure they're happy to act as your referees. Fitness to practice, it means you don't have any cautions or convictions or anything that block you from practicing in the UK. It's just a tick box. Now, eligibility, most important thing is you have your MRCS or will complete your MRCS by April. You have your CREST 2024. Remember, the CREST form has changed in last year, so make sure you use the updated form. They specifically mentioned in the application process that the previous CREST forms will not be valid, and you need at least 10 months of TNO. and then the declaration, which you say that you swear to say the truth, the whole truth, and you sign your life away. Okay, supporting information, they will need your MRCS, okay, and they ask specific question, and this is mainly if you have been practicing as a registrar for a long duration, are you going to be having your CCT or CSER soon? That makes you ineligible to apply. Okay. So the self-assessment form is self-explanatory. Islam went through it, but I'm just going to show you a bit more tips and tricks that you need to look into. So the first question. So question 1, and I highlighted the date. It tells you by July 2025. So if okay, you have to mention any job in medicine. So if you're going to start a job in February, you have to declare that job. Okay. The question 2, and like Islam said, the best score is 8, and if you've been practicing orthopedics for 10 to 14 months. In this condition, you need to provide your employment letters. The first page show the duration. If you don't have this, get an HR letter, okay, showing your start and end dates for every job. And this is very essential because basically, if you can't show a duration, they will assume it's a 4-year or longer, and it can undermark you. Okay, the time spent in surgical specialty is minimum 4 months. If you've got 2 surgical specialty, you get the maximum post 2. They include time that you had redeployment during COVID. So even during COVID, if you were in A&E to help and support, and you did 4 months of supporting work in A&E, that will count. If you work with the surgical department, that will count. If you worked with ENT or help cover ENT, that will count. All you need, okay, is evidence letter of employment or HR letter, okay, with start and end date. Okay, the NOF procedures, okay, it's at time of the application. So you can't say you had that done on the 6th of December, that NOF. It is now, okay? And all are supervised, trained, scrubbed or unscrubbed by its theatre. Okay, your maximum score is 4. You need 12 or more cases. Like Islam mentioned, you have to have validated logbook. Every page has to be signed, name, signature, and GMC on each sheet, okay, to be uploaded. Or else it's not going to count, and you're going to be undermarked. Okay, this is where you start getting it tricky. Okay, you got first author PubMed index papers, and this is from med school. You are the first author by the time of application. You will exclude any abstracts, case reports, or letters. Okay. If you have a paper that currently in press and you can provide a letter from the journal that is currently will be published, they will accept it. Okay. You count how many papers you had. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they will do a score adjustment after verification. Okay. You need to submit the PubMed ID for every paper. Now, question 6, they will accept every paper that you're not first author. They will accept a group author. So basically, there's a group, for instance, in which you're involved, and you are number 10. Fine. They will accept that. Okay. You need to also get the PubMed number. Okay. InPress is still accepted. But you need to show if a group paper, like for instance, it's you've been involved in a trial and that trial has been published, that you've been how you can demonstrate your contribution. Usually there will be an acknowledgement part in that paper saying who it was involved, and they will send you that email, or can ask the author, the main author, to send you that email. Now, we mentioned about probity station. This is highlighted to 2 station, very, very serious, in which this is the only time they said they will, if you have any problem, they will refer to GMC. And even before they refer to GMC, what they look at, okay, that will stop, that will freeze your application process immediately. Okay, it's a danger. So they'll count at your number of presentations, national, international, physical or virtual. So during COVID, people were doing presentation online. So if you had an online presentation in which you have a certificate, okay, you can include that. Each project will count once. So if you had the same paper presented at a different meeting, pick the best meeting in which you had, if you had a podium, brilliant, okay? The podium presentations in the best meeting, make it count, okay? You need to get the page of the meeting program. If you have a validated certificate from the meeting, that will give you a bit of behind you. They will check, when you say it's a property station, they will check all the evidence supplied in here very, very thoroughly. The same with question 8, the audits, okay? They want the number all presented. You can maximum value is 10. So your evidence that need to present, they don't want the PowerPoints. What you want to do is you provide evidence. So you can have an assessment of audit, like on the ICP. You can have a certificate from the audit department. You can have the registration process from the audit department and the final certificates, okay? Or letter of definition, okay? If you completed the cycle, count as 2 audits. So try to at least put an audit in which you complete, if you completed the cycle. One, it shows that you have more continued professional development, and it shows that you have more involvement in a quality improvement project. So the higher degree, there's not a lot you can do about it. But if you've got a master, you got 1, PhD, you got 2. So one of the new things that applied today is they said, well, we are aware about UK NERIC. However, it depends on the panel if they can accept it or no. Because different master degrees might not be 100% compatible with UK degrees. So if you get a letter from the institution you had this from, it will be very helpful too as evidence, okay? And it mentioned that you had a research-based thesis, you had your exam, okay, and the transcript and translation, in addition to UK NERIC. So you want to make sure that there's no ambiguity about your certificate. Okay. So leadership and management, you got 0, 1, or 2. Okay. The evidence that you can provide if you did any leadership or management inside or outside the NHS, if you worked in charitable organization, if you work to help meeting your rotas, it doesn't have to be just an NHS. So you got a letter from your consultant or signed body or manager that will help, will be enough support. Question 11, okay, teaching experience. So this is also very important. Most people will not have a postgraduate degree unless you had managed to start it early a year ago. But regular engagement, there is requirements in here that they added since last year. They look at the last year, you must have had at least 4 sessions per year, and you need to get feedback from the trainees you taught. Okay, a minimum of 4 or 5. Now, the evidence of support we mentioned, check your organization skill or your submission phase. Okay, and you can get 2 marks for that. Okay, it's a discriminator. Now, first thing you need to get an account. Make sure you get the request form signed. Don't miss the deadline. Check your reference. Make sure you got your referees. Collect your data or evidence. It's a lot of evidence that you need to scan. Make it to PDF and organize it properly. And in the end, apply for Wales and England. Thank you, guys. Sorry, I was rushing through it as much as possible to stick to time.
No, it's fine. No worries. We already beyond time, but we have to answer the question. It's the most important part of it. Okay, so the question is for Islam. Thanks, Tamer, firstly for the nice presentation and making everything clear. So the asking Islam, have you included any evidence from Egypt in your application? And if so, was it easily accepted? Are there specific tips for ensuring a smooth recognition of the international evidence?
So I only included the master degree which has been accepted. So I included the master certificate from Ain Shams University, and they accepted it, and I got 1 point for that. All the other stuff, mostly because I spent 4 years here. So yeah, I got like most of evidence from UK.
Okay.
But I know that they would accept anything that's got like that's reasonable and got reference, and just like, yeah, you've done something, you've got evidence for it, you've got reference for it. So yeah, I would just like put it as evidence, and I'm not losing anything. So I'll just give it a try.
Yeah. Abdullah is asking if I take an F3 in which I just do ad hoc locums, does this still count toward my experience as opposed to F2 or not?
It will.
12. Because
Okay.
we said everything since graduation, guys. They tried to make it very clear and very robust this year.
Yeah. Muhammad is asking if I'm working in a spine in a separate unit, does this count as TNO experience?
It depends. Is it neurosurgical unit spine or orthopedic spine?
Yeah, I would say it really depends on the HR letter or the contract, whether it says neurosurgery or orthopedics.
Yeah.
If it says neurosurgery, it will act towards other specialties and give extra point. If it says orthopedics, it will act towards orthopedic experience in my lose points. So,
and I would add, depending on where you need the points, speak to HR because they might just change the title and send it to you.
Okay, good tip. Sam is asking, can I apply in England and Wales at the same time? Yes.
yes.
Yeah, you can.
Yes.
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah, exactly. For Islam, what do you think made the most difference and helped you securing the job in the fourth interview?
Yeah, so what made really difference is just like every year I spend in the country, I learn a lot of new stuff. I get to know like more people and just like speak to trainees every year and try to know what they've done differently, and yeah, get involved in projects like audits. Try to present my audits nationally and internationally, so to improve, like get presentation points as well. Teaching, I completed my master degree while I was here. It was in Egypt. I started it when I was in Egypt, but I completed it while I was here. So yeah, I just like started as early as possible and built up my portfolio. And I was applying while I was doing that. I never gave up, and I just gave up my orthopedic job last year as well, and just like a step down to an SHO level job, which is quality improvement fellow. So this year really gives me a boost to my portfolio, and it saves my 8 points in trauma orthopedics. And as Ratib said, it is a game, so I just played the game in the interview. Just kept repeat, practice. You will just like say what they want to hear.
Yeah. So if an assistant lecturer of orthopedics in Egypt cannot be counted as an experience in orthopedics, it will count. You can play it as a part-time if you want, but yeah, it definitely will count. You can.
But I will give 2 points in teaching because
yeah.
Only if you manage to get all the documentation and supporting letters to support that you're doing regular teaching and feedback.
Yeah.
But you can play it as a part-time. It's not a big deal. But you cannot count it out from orthopedics. You will definitely count it.
Unfortunately.
The thing that will actually help you, because if you get an assistant lecturer post in Egypt, you have to do all these teaching courses too. Yeah. To be able to do that. And if you add them in the discussion in your portfolio, what you did, that might help you in the portfolio station in the interview.
Yeah. Regarding the 12 DHS cases, for evidence, do you print the summary page from the e-book and get each page signed, or do you have to get each case printed and get individually signed?
Each page.
Yeah.
I think both works. So whether you just like tailor the sheet for only DHSs or nails or hip fractures, but you have, if it is more than 1 page, because I know some people who got like who lost the points last year and lost the interview chance because they haven't added the GMC number for the consultant who signed, and each page need to be signed, and each page has to get like the GMC number.
Yeah, Mohammed is asking, my contract doesn't say how much time I'm spending in orthopedics or teaching. Not sure what it has. So, Mohammed, you have to play this. So you have to play the content.
Yeah, if the HR just mentioned clinical teaching fellow, it won't count.
Yeah. So you need to solve this with HR. I have minimum numbers 1 in orthopedic experience quiz. So would have to work on research question. Can anybody please guide me on various ways to get more audits, presentation, research paper? Brajit, I think, yeah, we can take this offline, and it's easy to be involved in some projects. Yeah, but you need to work on it. I don't think you'll be ready for this one. But we can try it at least as an experience. But yeah, we can help you with it. Just I'll keep it with that so you can just look. I'll get you involved in this. Ahmed is asking if one have 12 years experience, is there any possible way to play the game?
We actually made this mock, me and one of the other consultants at Guy St. Thomas's. Okay, you can still be appointable if you score every mark.
Yeah, can I add something? Because I've got an example, a guy working, was working with me in Queen Elizabeth Hospital. He finished his training in India. Yeah, he's brilliant. His self-assessment score went from 8 points to 20 points this year. So you can do it if you score like in most of other things, you can do it, because N number is only affecting audits, presentations, publications, and what else? Sorry, audits, publications, presentations. That's it. It's not affecting for teaching. It's not.
And it does not affect your interview station. So
yeah,
it just gets you through the door. If you get through the door, you have an equal chance.
So back to the question that's been asked earlier about the cutoff. Yeah, I agree with Ratib that there is no cutoff, and there's just like, I think they are interviewing 360 candidates every year. So it really depends on your peers who are applying with you at the same time. But the cutoff for the first year I applied, 2021, was 14.5. The cut year for the following 2022 was 15, and last year was 15.5. So theoretically, with the extra 2 points they added, I would say the average of 19, 20 is going to have an interview.
Okay, Islam, how to provide evidence for the year after internship in Egypt that's counted as F2?
So you don't specify anything. You just like you've got your certificate, and so we start our internship in Egypt in March. So you start March, like for me, I started March 2015 to March 2016. So this is FY1, and anything you've done from March 2016 to March 2017 is FY2. So they start to count you from March 2017 if you started your F1 in March 2015. That's it. And in application, you don't have to put all your experience like for 7-8 years ago. You just like have to add the last 3 years, and the system counts you automatic, like from 2 years after your graduation certificate. Because anyway, you're going to be GMC registered with a graduation certificate date. So it's linked to your GMC number. So your GMC number is linked to your graduation certificate date. So the system automatically started to count you 2 years after your graduation certificate date, and you don't have to put all your history like 7-8 years back. Just like 3 years, the system will accept it.
To Ratib, can an associate specialist be a referee, or it must be a consultant?
So I was just having a look through the handbook actually very quickly, but I can't see them saying any word that says who it has to be, but I would try for a consultant if you can. Okay,
actually there is. They clarified in the handbook this year very specifically, have to be a consultant, okay, and it preferably have to be on the special register. It could be a locum consultant, okay, and someone on the special register preferably. This is the word that they use.
And can you use the e-logbook summary report for HEP that shows only NOF? Or should it be a full e-log summary with how many pages do you recommend? So basically asking can be a consolidation sheet only, or he has a get a detailed report.
No, it can be a consolidated sheet. That's it.
And regarding ATLS, is it mandatory to be valid? I think so.
Yes, this was added in the last minute before the interview went out.
It wasn't last year.
Okay, it was added in the last minute.
And the question to you, Tamer, regarding presentation, it would need to be a project, research, audit, or if I present certain topic in a conference. So he basically asking the difference between a presentation or a faculty talk.
So this is a very fine line. What are they talking about the presentation? That you have to be involved in that project or research or audit that you're presenting. Okay, if you did a bit about a topic in conference, to get the number, what topic you present, is it teaching session, what type of topic you're talking about? Okay,
so
they say in the fine line that the panel has the right to judge, and if they're not happy with one topic or one presentation, they can eliminate it, and with the audit one. So use the high influence one first.
Yeah. Is European trauma course can be an acceptable alternative to ATLS?
They never mentioned anything about the alternative option. Okay, and I'm not sure. I need to check we need to check directly with Northern and Humber Deanery if they will accept the ETC as an alternative to ATLS. You can email them directly, and they will answer that question. But
So,
there's
Mr.
nothing
Tarek,
in the specification.
Hello, Mr. Tamer. So I've got a question for you. Sorry. How would they prove the validity of ATLS by the interview time? How do you think they will do it?
There's a date that you passed the ATLS, and the ATLS is valid for 3.5 years.
Yeah, I mean, like after you mean they will ask you after getting offer?
There's things that they will do at the offer time, but they're saying this is at the interview time. By April, you should have a valid ATLS. So they mean they're giving you 5 months from now to make sure your ATLS is valid.
I see, yeah.
Yeah, regarding the ATLS, guys, so if a good bunch of you need an ATLS, I can arrange you a course. So just let us know in the group chat, not here in the WhatsApp group, and we can organize one for you. I have the way to organize it either here or in Egypt if all the requesters are Egyptians, or here in UK if there is international people. So this question we answered before. Does hospital M&M presentation count as a local presentation?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. This is a question about accreditation of transferable capabilities in the application, which I don't understand. So transferable capabilities. Any ideas?
Sorry, I missed that question.
I'm asking, there is a question in the application about accreditation of transferable capabilities in the application.
This is usually doesn't apply for orthopedics. Okay, there's other specialty like max fax. Okay, and other specialty like so remember, this application is not just for other specialty in which you require some training in certain specialty can be transferred to other specialty. Okay, so it does not apply for orthopedic for transferable experience.
Relative, he's sitting FRS Part B in Feb, and he's asking if this would be a negative thing or he still have a chance.
He still, I'll take that one, Ratib, because we had this discussion. As long as by 15th of April he passed the exams, and got his scores, he still have a chance. If he didn't pass the exam, they will eliminate him immediately.
Okay.
I think you missed the question, Mr. Tamer. He's asking about FRCS, not MRCS.
FR.
FR.
Yeah.
Well, if he's going for FRCS, he's not eligible because he is going through the Caesar pathway.
Yeah, if he got signed for FRCS,
he is very close to getting the Caesar pathway or the CCT, which means that will be against him.
Okay. So this time, don't keep silent. We need your experience. So how to prove my first author application, which was submitted and is still under review?
So I think it has to be accepted. So the minute they accept it and you get confirmation of that, that's your proof.
Okay. I'm currently employed in TNO job and will go beyond 48 months after FIP. So losing points. Is acceptable to put down a career gap if you plan on submitting your resignation after submitting your application?
It's a bit tricky, but yeah, it's doable.
As long as you can justify it. So lots of people will say they have a career gap for family reason, or they have career gap for research. So if you're doing a research degree at the same time, you can justify the duration.
Yeah. Okay. And working, we answered this before. Okay. So, yeah, good. We're nearly done. We answered all the questions. We already 22 minutes beyond. So thank you so much, guys. Really, really helpful. Appreciating your time and effort in preparing the presentation, giving your tips and tricks. These people will owe you something if they got numbers, and we hope all of them will do. All the best in your career, and we're waiting to see you on this side. And thank you so much again, and have a very good and lovely evening. Good. This presentation will be ready. All will get a request for feedback, or already got at 10 p.m. Certificates will be offered, and the speakers will get the certificates as well. Ratib, very huge thanks for your time. Yeah, we spent more than 1.5 hours. Really appreciate it. And nice to see you today. And yeah, we'll be running some sessions in the future. We need the interview. We may do some mocks, and it will be really, really helpful if you join us for that. Thank you so much, and have a good evening.
You too.
Bye, everyone. Bye.